Afternoon. It's 5:15 and the Board of Town Commissioners work session meeting for July 15th is now in session. I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Rutledge.
Here.
Commissioner Chismar.
Here.
Commissioner Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Chance.
Here.
All right, all the commissioners are here, and we do have Mr. Hopkins, the town administrator, here by phone. Correct, Mr. Hopkins? You still with us?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
All right, great. All right, first on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make the motion to approve this evening's agenda of
Thank-
July 15th, 2025 at 5:15 at the Town Hall.
Thank you, Commissioner Chance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Any discussion of the agenda this evening? All right. Mr. Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For approval of this evening's agenda, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Chance,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
This evening's agenda is approved. Thank you.
All right. The first item on our agenda is a presentation by the Bel Air Kiwanis Club, and we have Mr. Gary Beck here. So the floor is all yours, Mr. Beck. If you could just speak into the microphone, and I hope we have it on for you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, Ed, for inviting me in our earlier meeting. My name is Gary Beck. I'm actually with the Reisterstown Kiwanis Club. I'm the Lieutenant Governor for Central Maryland and Delaware for the Kiwanis organization. If you're not aware, Kiwanis is a national firm, international firm, actually. It has clubs in basically every nation in the world. Our next national international convention is in Peru. We just had one in Gettysburg. That I could go to. Peru, $6,500 to get there. So I don't think there'll be a lot of people from this country there. There was a Kiwanis Club in Bel Air. Through people passing on and whatever, it faded away and went away, per se. So I'm part of a committee that's working on rebuilding and reestablishing that club. To create a club, we have to have 15 new members. We have met with 20 or 30 people. We've had one meeting. We have another meeting coming up Thursday of this week where 35 people have confirmed that they're coming. From that, we hope to get our 15 people. Kiwanis is very similar to most of the clubs that you're probably familiar with, Lions Club, Rotary. They're basically service organizations, which Kiwanis is, but that is not Kiwanis's theme. Kiwanis, their motto is serving the children of the world, and most people add one child at a time to it. We are very active in the communities, which all service clubs are, but our focus is with children. We have set up a program for every school level currently. It's in elementary, it's called K Club, in middle, it's Builders Club, high school is Key Club, college is Circle K, and 20 years ago, we opened up a activity club, which is for adults with disabilities. Circle K and Key Club are the largest school-based clubs in the world. Currently, Key Club has 7,529 clubs throughout. The purpose of these clubs, A, is to do social things and to get involved and get involved in your community. But especially from Key Club up, a Key Club is set up just like a Kiwanis Club is. They'll have a president, a vice president, a secretary, a treasurer. There'll be a lieutenant governor like myself who's in charge of the Key Clubs in that area. That person reports to a governor, and they wrong terms probably, but they learn responsibility and leadership. And this is one of the key functions that we see at that age level, for the young man or young woman to move ahead and say, hey, I'm just not here going to school partying. I'm taking responsibility. I'm learning how to move ahead, in my life. I was part of 3 groups that were here 2 weeks ago, just visiting people. Way Kiwanis sets it up, they have, International comes up with a list of 1,000 names, whatever. A group of people makes phone calls to that list from all over the world, really. The lady that I saw had most of the phone calls and the meetings I went to came out of Savannah. And then we had a group that met with the people. The only thing we set up was, hey, we'd like to talk to you. Give us 10 minutes. We're not trying to sell anything over the phone. And we would sit down and talk to them, explain what Kiwanis is, and ask them to come to an organizational meeting, which is where we are at this point. Most of them say, well, what do you expect from us? And which is a very logical, we expect nothing. Kiwanis requires a new member to do 3 things. A, they got to have a safety check, have a criminal background check. Every Kiwanis member, since we deal with kids, must every 4 years. In fact, while I was sitting here, I got an email from International said, you need to click and redo your security clearance. You have to attend the club has to have 1 meeting a month. You don't have to attend it. And the 3rd rule that they have is no money that a Kiwanis club earns in public can be used for the club. Every penny that a Kiwanis club raises goes into a foundation account, which is totally separate from the club's checking account. And any activity that they have, if it's for the members or dues or dinner or rent, cannot be used. The monies raised in public cannot be used for that. It was also interesting that one of the people I met with last week was Mary Beth Stapleton, who is the manager of Family Communication and Partnership for the Harford County Public Schools. And I walked into the room and I said, hello, I'm Gary Beck. And they said, you're from Kiwanis? And I said, yes, ma'am. There was 6 people sitting at the table. And he said, we were waiting for you. And I said, excuse me? What do you mean you're waiting for me? Because the tone was kind of, he says, we had a key club, several key clubs here in Harford County. When the club, Kiwanis Club left, they ended up evolving and going away. We want them back. We demand to have them back, per se. It's an interesting scenario. In fact, I have a meeting on Thursday in Baltimore County with the Board of Education is setting up community meetings for the principals and vice principals to look at how to get the kids involved in the community. And we're one of the groups they've asked us to come in and give a presentation, because since COVID, even much more than before, the kids don't know what they're doing. They don't have a purpose. I hate to say it that way, but I'm just hearing the principals and vice principals who talk to us, their statements, and they need organizational programs within the school to move ahead and get the people away from just looking at their phone, and playing games. And I'm here mainly to speak to you, to say hello, and hopefully, I understand this is being televised, and somebody in Harford County also hears this evening. That's who I'm really talking to. Not to be rude or anything, but when I heard that, hey, that's the possibility, I said, hey, that's another reason to stop in. But we are meeting at 54 East Lee Street, right there. It's the Harco, you can tell I'm not from this area. Harco Bank, their community building across the street from their main building. We have currently 35 people registered to come. And if you would like to, or your friends would like to, or anybody watching on TV would like to, we'd love to have you come and just hear what we are and see what we have to do. Getting back again to what you do as a member, you do what you think is right. And that's the bottom line. For example, we have a new fellow who's a banker who came into our club about 4 years ago, and he likes to ride a bike. He said, you know, I'd like to get involved in something with bikes. Well, it just happened that that was the week that we were giving the Officer of the Year award to the Baltimore County police officer in our area. And we went to that function. I wasn't there, but somebody else, and they gave the award and said, you know, we had a discussion in-house about having a bike rodeo. And about 15 people jumped up and said, you said what? Yes, this is what we want. We've been trying to figure out how to do it, but it's difficult for the police to do a lot of things that an individual or a firm could do. And so we are a joint venture with the Baltimore County Police. For the past 4 years, we've had bike rodeos. We had 60 people sign up for it this last year. When the family gets there, it's from 5 to 13 age group, because we're looking at the kids that we're playing with. When they get there, we take their bike and we put a little sticker on it that can't be removed, and that number is then recorded with the police department. We send them over to a inspection area where I work, and we check it for safety, check the brakes, check the steering, check the air in the tires, check the adjustments on the seats. Then we give them a free helmet. The helmet sells for $38 at the store. They make a lot of money at bike places. We buy it for 11 bucks. I mean, I shouldn't, you know, they say, hey, you guys are expensive hat. It is, it's a very good helmet. In fact, the girls' ones this year, they light up in the back. When you put it on, it activates something inside, and little lights blink on the back. From there, they go to something that, I'm looking around the room, there are a couple of you my age, but when my first car came out, I didn't have a turn signal. You know, if you wanted to turn to the left, you put your hand out, right, or slow down. Well, kids have never heard of this stuff. So we have a communication class, and we have them ride a course using their signals. Then they do an obstacle course, which this year worked better because a storm had just come through and a tree had fallen down on the parking lot where we were working from. And then the last step is they take their bike and they just decorate it. Put the baseball card on, when you go and whatever. But, you know, that's something that that person wanted to do. And so what does the person who joins Kiwanis do? What they want to, per se. You're not obligated to do anything, per se. There's a $75 charge to join a club. Of that, half of that money goes into a fund that'll be working money for the club once they get started. And of course, they'll have dues. My dues is $50 a quarter. You know, part of that is a multi-million-dollar insurance policy that Kiwanis covers on everybody all the time. So if anything happens at one of your activities or what somebody does or whatever, you know, you're totally covered by third-party insurance. And we're really looking at getting this club back moving. It will happen. The closest club to here right now is Elkton. They have an extremely active club. In fact, if you go to the Cecil County Fair, I appreciate it, buy a cup of lemonade. They sell $26,000 worth of lemonade in 5 days. Make $11,000 profit. As lieutenant governor, I get to go to all these different meetings. I sit there and go, you do what? You know, that's with everybody's reaction. They also collect coats from the schools. They have baskets set out. Anybody turns in an old coat, they take the coats, they clean them, they fix them up. Last year, they did 1,200 coats, recirculate them from being thrown away to giving to somebody for free. So, I mean, that's a typical thing that the club does. Plus, they have 6 key clubs and a couple of builders club. So it's an organization I feel very strongly about. I've been a member since 2000 for 25 years. And I still work 10 hours a day. I hit the office at 8 and I leave it at 6. And so, you know, it's not a matter I'm retired, just looking for something to do, but it gives me a lot of pride that we can accomplish something. And when you walk away, you feel good. And especially when you work with the kids and you see what some of them are doing. I see what my kids did, you know, and by working with them and giving them a goal and giving them something to get involved in, it creates a much better individual. So thank you for the time. And Ed, thank you for inviting me, if you're still there. And have a good day. And I must run because I have a 50-foot tree fell in my front yard last night. And I got somebody coming at 7 o'clock to give me a price to do something with it.
Well,
2 quick questions.
Yes, sir.
Your contact information, if people want to know how to get in touch with you to be a member?
Yes, sir.
And when was the meeting on Lee Street? Did you?
The meeting on Lee Street is Thursday of this week at 7 o'clock. And the address is,
You said 54 East Lee. Right?
it's 54 East Lee. It's that building right there.
Right.
And you park in the parking lot behind it. My name is Gary Beck. You can reach me
Okay.
at 443-250-1243. In fact, I will leave if I can get my wallet out of my pocket.
Sir, and that's the Ranger across from the Harco Bank, correct?
Correct, yes. It is their conference.
It's not the bank, but yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much for letting me come up here, and have a good day.
well, thank you very much for coming to town and reinvigorating the Kiwanis Club. We look forward to seeing you around.
Yes, we will be here. There's no question there. It's like everything else in life. If it doesn't work the first time, you just keep working until you get it done. Have a good day.
Thank you. All right. Next is the Town Administrator's Report. Mr. Krantz, you going to do that, or is Mr. Hoffman's going to try? Okay, I wasn't sure if you were going to try that from phone. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, first off, I want to thank Gary. Another community partner addressing the needs of the residents of the town of Bel Air. So, but Gary can still hear me. I appreciate him coming out today. Few things. Mike will probably talk about this under staffing, but our new part-time procurement officer, AJ Malforta, started at the end of June. He's off to a really good start. He's brought a lot of new ideas and best practices with him. He's been spending the last week or so getting to know the department heads and myself and getting an idea for how we want procurement to function in town and working partnership with Lisa and her shop. So I'm sure at some point he will come before a town work session to introduce himself, but he did start and is underway. I know I've mentioned in the past, but it's a little more relevant now. The Howard Park traffic study, we have deferred till September. Obviously, with all the construction going on in town, it wouldn't be a fair study to do that study now. We had pre-planned that study to do it back in actually last fall and then again in the spring, and it just made more sense to wait to get the Thomas Street project and the George Street project all done and underway so we get good data. Having said that, I really just wanted to take an opportunity, hopefully for the people that are viewing this or will view it, to just thank all the town residents for their patience. Logistically, trying to manage all these construction projects, as you all well know, can be a chore. Steve and his team have done an excellent job of doing that, but it has, it's created some traffic challenges in town for us and probably some inconvenience for a few people, and we recognize that. But when it's all said and done, these projects are going to make the town look way better than they looked before. And Steve's staff and the people that have worked with him are taking great strides to make sure that is done right and it looks good when it's finished. So the challenge is always getting to the finish line. and we're almost there for most of those projects, and we do appreciate everyone in town's patience. The second thing I wanted to talk about in regards to that are the serious storms we're having. The storms that we're having are coming a little earlier in the summer than we're typically used to. We've had 3 in the last 6 weeks that have dumped a tremendous amount of rainfall on the town. What I continue to urge residents to do is continue to take preparatory steps to properly plan to how to address these storms. We've had storms now where they should have seen problems, that they should fix those problems before they become reoccurring problems. Things like cleaning their gutters, trimming trees back, taking brush away from storm drains, or at the very least notifying Department of Public Works if a storm drain appears to be clogged so we can clean it. A lot of our flooding can occur because of blocked storm drains, and we'd have hundreds in the town of Bel Air, and we try to address each one, but it's important that the citizens let us know that so we can pay specific attention and clean that particular storm drain out. I also want to note, too, I think all the commissioners were aware of the photo I sent them of the exposed manhole on Cortlandt Street. That is an unusual event in the town of Bel Air, but it's not unusual to severe storms when the amount of water pushes, actually lifts manhole covers up off the roadway. People have a tendency to want to walk through standing water, drive through standing water. For whatever reason, they do it. But if you were to walk in standing water and step into an exposed manhole cover, there would be no survival, and it would be a horrible way to die. So we want to remind people that when these storms happen, this flooding occurs, that they need to be, one, extraordinarily cautious about walking in standing water to the point where they shouldn't, unless they absolutely have to. And second, same with driving. Driving through standing water is an absolute is a challenge for first responders and others who work in that environment to rescue those people. People think they can drive through standing water with no problems, and you hit an exposed manhole cover or your engine floods out, and you could potentially be walked away. Keep in mind, it only takes about 3 inches of water to float a car. Most people don't realize that, but that's pretty much about all it takes to float your car and put you in a more dangerous, precarious position. So, moving on, I had a chance to tour the new Homestead Wakefield Elementary School. Their public school facilities folks invited me over. I spent a couple hours walking through the school. It's a beautiful new school. It's going to be exciting when the public gets to attend it and see it later this fall, and of course when you all will be there then this fall for the grand opening. So very proud of what they've done. Their work looks great, and it's come along very, very well. I suspect Michael will talk about this later in his report, but as you can see in the back of the rotunda, we have the Hayes House model. We partner with the Historical Society. Mike has done that. He's done an excellent job at working with Chris Potts. My thanks goes out to Mike and Executive Director Chris Potts for that piece of history in our rotunda, which people will be able to visit and read about over the next several months before it moves on to its next location. And then last, the Municipal Citizens Academy. Our next session starts September the 24th and runs through November the 12th with graduation on November the 17th. We have put the agenda together. David is going to start advertising for us and would like to take this opportunity to announce its official start and to begin recruiting students for that class. So unless there's any questions, Madam Chair, that's all I have for the moment.
Anybody have any questions for Eddie? Nope. All right. I'm going to suggest that we take item 10A, the calming devices, the speed hump on East Broadway, out of order because I know we have these 2 ladies here who are interested just in that particular discussion. Anybody have any? And one's got a little tiny baby, so I don't know how long they'll all last.
I move to amend the agenda to place item 10A in between items 5 and 6.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So this is certainly my least favorite topic on the agenda today, and I want to apologize to the 2 of you for having to come to this meeting and sit here this evening, but there's a couple of problems that I have with how this whole thing has happened. One is that we approved the contract for the paving without knowing that it included a speed bump. The other is that as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Small or Chief Moore, you did the speed study. There were 2 actually done. One was done in the summer, and it was felt it didn't really fairly represent the traffic, so it was done again in October, correct? Correct. Okay. And the one that was done in October, you scored using the scoring system that you always use for speed bumps, correct?
Correct.
And it did not meet the criteria for putting in one. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay, that's where I think this whole thing jumped the rails and went wrong. Somehow, the community felt that the study showed that a speed bump wasn't just like, appropriate, but was like really necessary. So I think we've had some miscommunications and some errors here that we need to talk through this evening. The problem I have with the whole speed bump issue is if it doesn't meet the criteria for a speed bump, I don't think we should be putting one in. I know of at least 2 other neighborhoods that want one, where I'm pretty sure they're also not going to meet the criteria, having looked at your scoring sheet. And, how do we tell neighborhoods, well, you get one because you want one, but you don't get one, even though you're in the same position as everybody else, you didn't get one. I have reached out to the county and asked them why there are speed bumps going from around Ardmore on the county side all the way down to Moores Mill Road. I live on Shamrock. I drive through that intersection every day. I walk it most days. I can't really get out of my neighborhood unless I go through there. I'm either headed up to Churchville Road to go somewhere, or I turn right on Broadway to go to the athletic club behind the mall. And what I do see as a problem there, more than the speeding, is people who run the stop sign. And I kind of get the temptation to run the stop sign there. I have never run that stop sign. But it's a kind of a clear, easy to view all 4 stop signs, and it's an all-way stop. So as long as somebody else doesn't do the same thing, you're probably going to be okay. So you're kind of depending that, most people are law-abiding and you can get away with it. I see people do kind of the rolling stop, like they slow down pretty slow, but they don't really stop, and they take off. I drove the intersection today from all directions, from Hickory down towards the intersection with Shamrock and Broadway, and that's pretty flat, and that's not where the speed bump's been requested. It's on the other side. On the other side, you're going uphill when you're going in that direction. You're going downhill when you come in the other direction. But the data didn't show that speeding was a real problem. Pretty much everybody was within the 85th percentile. There's always some outliers that, apparently have no sense. But most people are hanging around the 25, maybe 30 mile an hour speed limit. I'm not aware of any accidents at that intersection. And that's, sort of, if it didn't meet the criteria on the scoring sheet, but we had a number of accidents, I would think maybe we need to look deeper into what's going on. So at this point, I really could not say we should put a speed bump there or hump. They have a million names for these things. And actually, they're called traffic calming devices, and that includes things as like putting up a sign that says, slow children playing, or painting stop ahead on the sidewalk. But most people, when they hear a traffic calming device, they're thinking of that speed. Is it a hump or a bump? The bump, one is bigger than the other. This is a hump, okay, because the bump is bigger, and we don't put them in roads. All right. Shallow. Okay, so this is a hump. Right, they're gradual, right, you don't hit it like a curb. Okay, so it seemed that much of our traffic wasn't going much more than 25. I mean, everybody should be at 25, but, that's, almost impossible to achieve. But I would like to see what the county uses as their criteria, and give them an opportunity to get back to me. I just contacted them today because I've been out of town for about 10 days, and see if I know what their criteria is. I'd like to compare it to ours to see if it's any different. And I asked them if they remembered why they were put in all the way from Ardmore down to Moores Mill. And I think the reason is that it's kind of a bigger speedway going down there, because you're not running into the stop signs, being on either side of it. So that's kind of my feeling. I'm terribly sorry that somehow the neighborhood felt that it met the criteria, that we really felt it was important, because that's just not factually accurate.
Madam Chair, yeah, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I read over all the materials that that were forwarded, emails, et cetera, you know, that I've received as well. And one of the issues that I'd like to try to put in perspective would be the fact that the committee that doesn't have any commissioners on it that looked at this apparently had reached some conclusion that even though it didn't meet the criteria, that there would be an opportunity for neighbors to solicit neighbors to sign, you know, what I view as a mini petition, you know, for a speed hump. And you know, when I looked at that and learned at that, you know, it's caused me to reflect upon, you know, really, you know, why would we want to take the authority away from the elected officials at the commissioner level to have a majority or a supermajority of a neighborhood, you know, govern the roads? And I think the answer to that is, well, under both our town charter and code, there is no delegation to this committee of control over the roads and making budget decisions on the roads. So my look at that, as far as I know, I mean, I'd asked for some research to be done to find a resolution of the commissioners that made such delegation, and my understanding is, as of today, no such resolution could be found in the records of the commissioners. Is that correct, Mr. Krantz?
I have found no evidence.
Yeah, so certainly it's regrettable that, you know, that residents feel like, okay, they were granted by the town an opportunity to, you know, vote to require a speed hump in spite of the fact that the underlying data didn't support it under the criteria that exists, and then furthermore that they certainly view that, you know, there was a guarantee. I've seen that word used. That's, in reality, as harsh as it may seem, that's not the way town government works. There are no guarantees that can be made by anybody in the town that overrides the responsibility and the authority of the commissioners with regard to expenditures of road improvements or changes to the road, which brings me to the first point that the mayor made, which is I was trying to figure out, had I just in the, you know, blur of 2024 and 2025 missed the presentation or discussion on either the budget last year, the budget this year, or the approval of the contract that addressed that there was also going to be a speed hump put in, because that would have really gotten my attention. And when I looked back through my records, all I could see was that there was a vote to approve the paving contract, and my understanding, and I might even ask the question, this is just a routine paving. I mean, that was the impression I had coming away from, you know, voting to approve that contract, because certainly speeding, traffic control, we have lots of matters that people certainly raise as we went door to door 2 years ago, you know, campaigning and talking to people about issues. And as I reflected on that, I became pretty confident in my recollection that I never was asked to even weigh in on the issue, and that's why I asked, well, did prior commissioners make some delegation of authority? And I think the answer to that is clearly no. So unfortunately, the sense that there would be some enforceable promise or guarantee that this was going to happen when that road was resurfaced recently, I don't think that carries merit. And although I can sympathize with the residents, we're really dealing with we've got competing views in the neighborhood, but we have a fiduciary responsibility to take a hard look at, you know, when criteria is set, is the criteria being met? If there's going to be an exception to criteria for improvements or changes on the roadways in our town that are outside of the normal routine repaving, et cetera, that sits in the clear, square lap of the elected commissioners. So that's why I was totally in favor of saying, hey, you know, this thing needs to get on a work session. We need to start to dig into this further and not just say, well, you know, we're sorry the way it came about. Yes, get the paver out there because the machine's right around the corner and do it. I'm not comfortable with that. I think government decisions by the elected commissioners have to be done. As part of what I campaigned on was adequate notice, adequate opportunity for the commissioners, adequate opportunity for the public, a deliberative process. That is a North Star of my governing philosophy. And so making a last minute decision here for the commissioners, Madam Chair, I join in your concerns as to this needs to be examined on the merits. And if the decision is made to put a speed hump in, then that expense will, you know, be approved by the commissioners. And it's much more important to have a deliberative process on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate your diligence on this. Initially, when this all came about, I thought, well, if we had said we were going to do this, then we should do it. But I hear what you're saying. I have concern not just about that area, but I'd have to say that you would be blind not to know that people are increasing their speed everywhere. Come down Main Street, they're going 35 miles an hour. I'm sure they're coming down Broadway. I drove it a number of times this week just to get the feel of it. Yes, there are a number of speed bumps there, but at any point, somebody's going to go 40 miles an hour. And I don't know what to do about that. Yesterday, I'm coming down Main Street. The light turned red right at the intersection of Route 1 and Main, and this pickup truck alongside of me went speeding right through that light. Red as red can be. People are out of their minds when they're driving anymore. And I understand when you live in a residential area like Broadway, and it's a pretty straight path on that area, people are going to drive too fast. Now, what can we do aside from speed bump?
I would look at the chief for that. Because
Exactly. And so I think there needs to be some more discussion about it, but gosh, honestly, I feel like things are getting more and more and more out of control in terms of running four-way stop, forget it. Just, if they don't see somebody at a four-way stop, they just go right on through. I have become increasingly aware of the issues, I think because I've got a 16-year-old granddaughter who's going to be driving very soon, and then a 14-year-old coming along too, and a 12-year-old who'll be there too. And I think, what is it going to be like? People are going to be driving 95 miles an hour, and we're just going to sit back? We can't do that. So I know, Chief, this has got to be awfully hard to deal with. But I don't want somebody to get struck and killed at a crosswalk or riding a bike down the street by somebody who's driving way too fast. So anyway, that's my concern. So fix it.
I wish I had an easy answer for it. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've seen driving behaviors very bad for a very long time. And unfortunately, you know, they use the metaphor of, you know, you can't get all the fish in the barrel. We do our best, but the cops just run from call to call, retail thefts, etc. But statistically, I don't know if I can say that we're absolutely getting worse. Crashes are about the same as they've always been. That's one of the metric points that I look at, crashes, and I look at the enforcement activities that we do, which remains pretty consistent. Again, something we've done a couple years ago is we've signed somebody specifically too, who is very good at traffic enforcement, to concentrate specifically on traffic enforcement. And we are data-driven, which means that we look at the crashes that happen at the hotspots, and mostly these are the intersections. I haven't seen really an increase in those, and I'll double-check the stats. And I know, and maybe it's something about perception, because, you know, like you say, you have your daughter with you, you're watching more and you're noticing more. And I make a lot of traffic stops myself. I've just seen people drive foolishly for a very long time now. And, you know, it's selfish, and it's just something that we always try to raise awareness about. I think you see some of our Facebook posts, but we'll just keep doing what we do, and keeping an eye on the hotspot areas and focusing in our enforcement at those locations. And just remember, one of the things that has picked up that unfortunately has taken our officers away from that very important safety issue that's on my mind constantly is retail theft. We spend a lot of time there dealing with these people that most of the time they're not even from our area, and they're victimizing us. And it's taking our officers away from where, you know, something that I think is very important too. So it could be rising because of that, but again, you know, I have to look at the stats, and I'll let you know when I look at them if I do see an increase in that. But I keep a pretty close eye on them. We're pretty consistent, and our traffic enforcement is up. We are writing a lot of paper to people, and EROs, equipment repair orders, because one of the things I think Commissioner Rutledge brought up early on in your campaign is I cannot stand this exhaust stuff. And we have 2 officers that concentrate very hard on the exhaust in these cars. So, yeah, but I feel you, and I understand. And it's something that's it's still very important to me.
It's just, I feel like crosswalks, people don't pay attention to crosswalks. I wonder if there's some more signage we could use, or lights, or, I don't know, but I worry about people trying to cross the street legally. I
It's,
don't know.
Keep an eye on our page. There's going to be an interesting post coming up tomorrow. We saw some geese right at Linwood at South Main today, all about 40 or 50, all of them used a crosswalk. So we'll have a very interesting post on that. Everybody stopped, thankfully, you know.
That's great.
Yes, it's very important to us, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yep, yes, ma'am.
Stop for the geese, but not for the people. Okay. No, Chair Edding and well, everybody, I kind of I kind of share with a lot of what you're saying, and I want to make sure that the public knows, and that I have a good understanding of how a traffic study is done. Is it done with equipment that is not visible to the public, like, you know, the trailer with your speed is 25? Because that itself is a deterrent. So we want to make sure that we're getting good readings. So how do we actually do that?
We actually have a device. It's it's an advancement in technology, and what we used to have, which were the tubes. I don't know if you remember the 2 tubes that would measure.
Yep.
It looks like a VASCAR, the distance between the tubes, and come up with a speed that way. We actually have an electronic device. It just hooks on a post. It's very discreet, and it's
Right.
hard to see. Kevin uses it quite frequently to get our studies. And it's very accurate. So it's not something that's out there that people see. Usually it's several phases that we concentrate on. We'll put the speed counter out there for a couple weeks, and we try to do it in a time frame that's the traffic is consistent, such as, you know, we know if we're getting traffic going through a certain area, that if it's going to be heavier during school time, we'll try to do that during that period to get an accurate measurement. And then we might use the speed trailer that actually has a speed come up. We'll have that in there too, and then we'll do actual traffic enforcement. So it's like 3 different
Right,
phases.
but the speed trailer is more of a deterrent rather
Yes.
than doing the
Mhm.
actual
Yes,
study
yes.
to
Yes, sir.
gather the
Yes.
data to determine what level of improvements would be recommended for that area.
Yes, correct.
Right.
And another surprise we have coming up are electronic awareness signs. We have it in the budget for 2 of them on Main and Bond Street. So that's
Right.
something else that we're going to be working on. Because of what you've provided us in the budget,
Right.
we're going to be posting those on Main Street and Bond Street. Now, we're dealing with SHA on that, and I'm not disparaging SHA, but it's a little bit of a process for that. So it is
Right.
near and dear to my heart too, ma'am, and it's something that I really, it's one of those things that I walk on eggshells about is when I hear a pedestrian crash, because it's never a good thing when you're mixing somebody that's, 180, 170 pounds with a 3,000-pound vehicle. So it's always on my mind.
And then when I looked at the criteria kind of mirrors, it's kind of mirrors what the county does, because that was in one of
Yes, sir.
the things you provided us. It's not exactly the way, what the county does, but we have a couple more categories than the county.
Mhm.
But we use the same point scale rating, so actually, it looks like our criteria can
Kevin
get
is
more
the- yes,
points
sir.
compared to what the county could do.
Yes, sir.
based
Kevin is
upon
the
their
expert on
points.
this neighborhood transportation management. Sorry, buddy.
NTMP started back in Syracuse, California, about 2000. And then tons of different municipalities and counties have copied it. But they copy it
Right.
in their own way, suited to
Tailored.
their own
Yeah.
needs. So
Right.
an example between us and the county is the county requires 3/4 of the people in the block being requesting the speed device, whereas we only require 2/3. And then there's other criteria that are just
Right.
slightly different.
There's other, because we added criteria for sight distance of intersection visibility, which can be 5 points, accident history, which could be 10 points. And those criteria or metrics are not in the county's one, but it's still, we're still using that scale of up to 30 or up to 50 is level 1, 50 to, I forget what it is, 50 to 79 is level 2, and that's the way, same, so we could get more points.
Conceivably, because you have
Conceivably
more
for the
criteria
same,
to go
because
by.
there's more metrics, more criteria in there to
Yeah.
do that, so, yeah. And I know, I sympathize with I live on Broadway. I live in the 300 block of Broadway between Hickory Avenue and McCormick Street. And we brought this issue up years ago. I think you did a survey over there on Broadway 5, 8 years ago, maybe longer. I can't remember, but it's always that one block from the stop sign to the street light. When people see that light turn yellow, they floor it. They try to beat the light. And I mean, we just have to, we deal with that every day. And again, it's just the behavior of the drivers, today's drivers, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. We have to, we have that same situation, and that four-way stop at McCormick and Hickory, or McCormick and Broadway's, they blow through that all the time too. So I sympathize with the people living on the 500 block, but you're not alone, I guess is all I'm saying. We're just 2 blocks up, and we see the same stuff.
Everybody's in a hurry to go nowhere
Nowhere.
fast, and really, that little bit of extra speed
I
is
know.
not going to get you there earlier. It just doesn't.
No, we'll sit
Doesn't
down on the
compute.
porch and watch, oh, there's another one trying to beat the light. They're never going to do it. We know if they're not at a certain point of the street, they're never going to make the light. And, we just have to put up with it.
Mr. Chismar, just for your information, we just were requested to look at that again from a neighbor in your neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
So we will be bringing that before the committee and probably putting
Okay.
out some speed data and so forth in your block to check on that again.
Okay. And as far as having someone on the commission, or the NTMP, a commissioner on that, I don't know, I'm vacillating on that, because I think it just should be a standing thing. If we're going to do something that requires expenditure of funds, then they'll come up with a recommendation and should come to us for the funds to implement it.
I am fine with that.
Instead of us having a member on there, because I'm not sure what they're going to do. They can't vote on themselves and say they can or cannot. They could lend some advice or whatever, but I don't, one commissioner can't make that decision alone to implement any
Right.
speed improvement or whatever.
And just to clarify on the points, it's a scale of 100, is that correct, Kevin?
Yes.
And it's up to 50. You need to get 50 points to qualify for,
There are 3 levels,
that's what I want the explanation. Thank you.
and 0 to 50 is level 1. From 50 to 75 is level
79.
2, and then 75 and up. We never hit 75. It's just
And what level is a speed hump?
2.
A 2.
So it's-
And this was a 30 out of 50, so it wasn't even close to a 2. It wasn't like it was 48.
Mhm.
Okay. Just so you kind of have some understanding for the public out there what the scale is and what this one scored.
Could I do a quick follow-up question on that? Kevin, then, if the scoring, just for the public, the scoring does not include the neighborhood petition or vote, correct?
No.
So, this particular project did not meet the criteria on the scoring, was not close to a level 2, is that correct?
It was 30 out of 50, correct.
Okay. So then the concept of the input of the neighborhood, when does that come into play? How does that come into play? Is it's scored for something, there's a recommendation, and now we're going to check with the neighborhood? Or does the neighborhood drive the ship?
Typically, the initial request comes from the neighborhood to review it. Then it goes through the measurement, it's scored, and then it goes to petition.
Okay, so would it be correct to assume that customarily, or the vision of that would be, okay, now we've got data that supports it, and now we want to go to the community and see whether they also support it? Wouldn't that be the logical approach?
That would be.
Okay. Thank you.
To that end, Jim, I really think that this is, the whole process of how we got here has been very regrettable. And to the folks who live on that street who were given instructions about how to engage in the democratic process and then turned around and told that 2 years later there was something wrong, not because of any mistake that they had made, but because of a mistake that the town had made, I think they're owed a very large apology. And I extend that to the degree that I can. I think that this has taught us that there are some reforms that are needed in this process. I, for one, am certainly in favor of a commissioner liaison on the NTMP. I really want to drill down into where these metrics are coming from. I understand that this is sort of an international, a national standard that started in California 25 years ago, but where are we getting that 2/3, threshold? When are we deciding to toss it to public plebiscite? How do we define the geographic boundaries of public plebiscite? I believe I mentioned to the mayor the other day, are we polling the 500 block? Are we polling all of Broadway? Are we polling the entire town? Because eventually somebody might drive on Broadway. And further, have any of these things been adopted by the board to grant this authority to even go to the community for that petition? All of these are questions that I think speak to the deeper issue here, which is that the code and the charter give authority over the roads to this board. And certainly anything as significant as the installation of I would say a major grade traffic control device like a speed hump should be greenlit by this board. And so on the issue of the merits in this, we've sort of beaten this dead horse. The merits are clear. on this issue, that that particular location does not warrant a speed hump. 30 out of 100 does not meet that 50-point threshold. That being said, what I've been wrestling with the past week is the process that the residents have gone through, and whether or not the town, even when it makes a promise in error, can be counted on to do what it said it was going to do. And so I may be in the minority on this, and that's okay, because I think this specific instance is part of a broader conversation about how we do this generally, and I'm all into having that conversation. I honestly think that in this particular instance, the merits have been preempted, and that the promise ought to be honored. My deepest sympathies go out to those folks who were ostensibly told that this was the way to do things, only to find out that in fact they weren't. I think that any time that we are going to bind the town to a position, and Commissioner Rutledge, I would actually accept your worldview that the town was not bound by that action, in fact, because there was no authority to bind. My view is coming from the fact that the residents assumed we were acting in good faith. We assumed we were acting in good faith, and I say we very generally as the town, only to later find out that that authority was not in place to make that promise. So that's why I'm in favor of honoring the promise, because the residents had no way to know that it wouldn't be honored. Again, it sounds like I'm in the minority, and that's the way that our deliberative process works, that our representative process works, and that's the point of having elected officials, to represent residents and represent people and work through these issues. But I do think that we need to perhaps reorder the way that we do these things. After everything I've heard, it sounds like we have a lot of great metrics here. I know we have great people on the ground in BAPD and Public Works and Planning. I know we have all the expertise that we need to put these pieces into place. That's not the issue. For a moment, we've got all the expertise and all the technology we need. We just need the proper process. And in this particular instance, I don't believe that the residents were given the best process. And I think that we can improve, and we must improve. We owe that to the residents to improve.
I wholeheartedly agree with you on the residents were not treated very well in this instance, and they are owed a huge apology, and I do apologize on behalf of the town. But I personally cannot agree to putting traffic control devices of any kind on the roadway for the motoring public in general, because somebody who did not have authority to bind the town to this made a mistake. And this was truly like an egregious error. I'm not sure how it happened. I hope we can take steps so it never happens again, but it should have been clear once the data came in and the scoring was done. The neighborhood should have been made aware that it just doesn't qualify, so they didn't go around getting signatures and, be operating under the misunderstanding, really, that the area actually needed a traffic hump, because the speeds don't show that it does. And I apologize. It is not our best day, is an understatement, so.
So certainly it's not the residents' fault, and I do sympathize with that, because I've certainly been on the receiving end of having one impression just to find out that the rules were the rules and it wasn't the way it was going to be, and both in private life and in government life, and as almost 40 years as an attorney for my clients, and that's why there's an appellate court. That's why there's the Supreme Court of Maryland to review what the circuit court here in Harford County does. There's, it's on and on the list goes. But I wanted to loop back to something that Commissioner Taylor said about and what Commissioner Chismar said about a commissioner on the committee. I like the idea of a liaison that does not vote, and this is why. Because it puts a huge burden on the members of the committee, who are employees and experts in their different fields in the town, to come up with legislative initiatives. I like the idea where a liaison can be on the committee, because when they're studying and grappling, hey, we got a problem out here, we got a perceived problem, we got some bad actors, might just be 1 out of 100's a really bad actor, but it just takes one to have a bad accident, and I understand that. And I think the idea would be, if a commissioner liaison is there when they're wrestling with this, and I think the solution was, let's see what the community thinks, was sort of the solution of wrestling with the emotion and the reality. If we got seriously concerned people here, what can we do? And it sort of evolved to this next step process. Maybe, this is pure speculation, but maybe a commissioner would have said, well, what authority do we have to, triple fines like they do in school zones? I mean, what authority do we have to have traffic laws to say, hey, if you're within so many feet of a bus stop and you get cited, or, because the bus stops down there? I mean, there could be other ways to increase penalties. And so I've always been a believer in the deterrent effect of the law. And so a lot of times to have a greater deterrent means a much more severe penalty to get people's attention and get the word out. It's kind of like speeding in Dewey Beach. Anybody that cuts down the back way into front of Ocean City knows you don't even think about drifting through a stop sign in Dewey, because you're getting nailed, you're getting fined, it's going to be a big fat fine. You don't even think about speeding because you're getting nailed, it's going to be a big fat fine. And there are towns, it used to be Middletown, Delaware, before they built Route 1. I remember riding to Ocean City with my mom, says, we're in Middletown, everybody slow down, because the minute you were 1 over the limit in Middletown, it was like a $100 fine way back when, It was like, which was huge back in like 1972. So there are other things that perhaps the tools in the chest can only be legislatively moved forward. And the liaison, Steve, I think, wouldn't be there to second guess or to, vote, but to observe, so that, just like, you with the Planning Commission, you can observe things that you can then maybe formulate a legislative initiative on. I'm watching what happens with Historic Preservation Commission, so I can either get on board with what they want to do or suggest things, so and say, hey, we'll take it to the commission level and have some legislative changes. So I think that I totally support that. And I don't know, Commissioner Taylor, whether you're in the minority on this particular issue or not. You may be gleaning that through the comments. I don't know where the votes would lie on that. I am with the mayor, but I'm not sure where everybody else is.
And I should say, I don't think that there's even the beginnings of a clear answer here, because the merits and the promise, we'll call it, are pretty diametrically opposed. And that's really the beginnings of the problem. That should never have happened in the first place. So I certainly respect the position. I understand the position. I found myself vacillating, wrestling before ultimately deciding on what I felt was the more important of the two priorities in this particular instance. But I think the broader point, and perhaps even the more important thing than just this particular instance, is how we ensure that this doesn't happen again, and how we can deliver just a better system to every neighborhood in town, because I understand that we have a few other neighborhoods that are turning to us for help with traffic-related issues. So I want us to be ready to go and make sure that we have all our ducks in a row when we have to answer those questions and conduct those studies and deliver to them either good news or bad news, depending on what the data bears out.
And my problem is, how do we tell one neighborhood no when their data doesn't show they should have a speed hump, and we've told another neighborhood yes? And my bottom line is sort of fairness overall. It is a terrible thing that has happened in the 500 block of Broadway. There is absolutely no excuse for it, and it should have been over with when the data came in. But I just don't want to continue down that wrong path and then have to explain my other neighborhoods why they don't get any, because I now know of at least 3 that want a speed, well, one that's actually talked to the town about having the study done on Broadway, and there's another one on Giles who we're going to talk to them about their issues and what potential problems, solutions there might be. But I don't want to be telling those other neighborhoods no if we've told one yes when they didn't qualify either. I mean, that's the reason we have some kind of an evaluation like this is fairness to everybody who's in this similar position.
Right, and I agree with you, Chair Edding. And if the criteria is, I mean, that's why I brought up the thing about the criteria. It's similar to what the county did. Ours is actually can score a little bit more points, but I'm also up to reviewing that criteria and seeing if it's appropriate for our area. Okay, and, you know, because you always have to guess that. Whenever you're looking at these criteria or assessing points, it's you got to look at all the assumptions. You got to look at how you gather the information and the data, because you can make things come out
I would say
kind of how you want. But in any case, you know, it's like, if this isn't the right criteria, then that's fine. But, and as far as, you know, having a liaison, you can, but I think we have, when you look at who's on the staff or who's on the NTMP, you have the town administrator, director of public works, the chief, the deputy chief, you have a police officer, you have the director of planning. Who else is on that? Pardon? I had it all? Okay, I was just going from a memorandum. I was hoping that was consistent. And I think that if there is an issue, they know enough about what their authority should be and what the commissioner's authority should be. And if there's things that come up that require that, you know, we're going to have to take this up. This is what we're going to recommend, but they can only do recommendations. And even if those recommendations are ordinance changes, or things of that nature, I mean, you do that with us now all the time. So I don't.
But I don't think it would be a bad idea to have at least one of us there, so that be it in the liaison report section, be it somewhere, there is at least a line of communication between this board and that committee, so that we don't wind up in this situation again.
Well, I think that should be reported out whenever they have one of these meetings. It should be reported out to us in the staff reports that we get that we get for every meeting when they have you know, their outside meetings and commission meetings and all. That it should definitely be. We should go over, like, you know, I'm looking at some of the memos, or, you know, upwards of 9 items on the memo, and we should get a little rundown on each of those 9 items. It's in the memo.
That certainly works for me. Just some manner of,
Right.
you know,
Reporting
that
out.
we see what's being discussed and
Right.
what the issues are. Yeah.
Well, I think we've reached at least something of a consensus here. One is that we want to look at a way to not have this happen again, whether that's having somebody as a liaison to the group, or having the group report out to us regularly on what they've done. Those 2 things would be helpful. As far as this particular issue, I think I'd like a little more time to, you know, think about this. I don't know if there's anything else that we could do in this neighborhood less than a speed hump to, I'm not sure it's worthwhile or not to do a second traffic study. Somebody did say that they thought this one was still the tail end of COVID effects. I know we did one in the summer, and then they did one in the fall, because the summer, of course, there's nowhere near as much traffic because school's out.
I think the last one was October of 2023.
It was, in
Right,
fact.
correct. Small, yeah, so I mean, we can do another, it doesn't hurt, but it's probably gonna be about the same.
Probably gonna be
And
about the
even the
same.
average speed, if you look at both studies, it's 27 miles per hour, you know, so.
That's what I saw, which
I mean, we can
wasn't
do it
too
again.
terribly off the mark of
Right.
25.
Mhm. Now, the traffic volume is considerably higher in the other, and Mr. Klein just pointed out that could make a difference in the decision-making of going against what is in the point system, so you may want to look at that. the volume is higher. The peak traffic per hour in the first one, in the email you got, the volume is a lot higher.
I saw it was like over 7,000 cars in a week,
Like around 1,500 a
something
day.
like that.
Yeah,
That's
so,
a lot. And I would like to see what the county has to say about why they put them in,
I would
if they
definitely.
know.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Klein.
I would definitely think that the main reason is because many of the children in that community walk to school, to Southampton Middle School, and that is a main criteria in our program as well. Probably necessitated that reason they have theirs. Another variable that it's hard to look at through our information is non-residential traffic.
Right, that's
what-
just a guess.
What traffic is running through that area from Moore's Mill to Main Street? So that is something that's really hard for us to determine.
and something, we're in a quandary. We try to keep everybody happy, but there's conflicting perspectives.
I think
and
that's
it's
what
just-
happened
yes,
here.
ma'am.
I
Yeah.
think the error was
Yeah.
in trying to make everybody happy, and then other people are unhappy, but the basic thing was it didn't meet the criteria, and I think someone was, I think it was an attempt,
Right.
even in the face of that, to keep the neighborhood happy, but here we are. So I would like to just, if I had to say today, I'd say no speed hump there because it doesn't meet the criteria. I would like to hear from the county as to why they've got speed humps all the way down to Morris Mill and what their current criteria is. And they may not remember why. Those have been on Morris Mill as long as I can remember. They've been there a very long time. But I would like to take a look at that and ponder whether, I'm not sure if it's worth doing another traffic study, but it wouldn't hurt. Maybe we could do another one.
We can go ahead and set it up. Yes,
All right.
ma'am. Mhm.
All right, well, let's
Right.
set that up, but we need to wait till school's in session.
Right, okay.
Because the summer day, I mean, I noticed there's a huge traffic drop-off, like on Saturdays. Nobody's driving down, and everybody's home having coffee, I guess. Nobody's going to
Yep.
work, not taking kids to school, so the numbers on Saturdays are much lower than they are during the weekdays.
It isn't just the school traffic, though, either. It is definitely a cut-through.
Oh, it definitely
yeah.
is. It definitely is, Mary.
Yeah.
You're correct
Right.
about that.
Year-round.
Yep.
Early in the morning, late in the afternoon,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, people in the developments on the other side, like the Hampton Ridge, the Tudor Manor,
Yeah.
come across Moores Mill Road and then down Broadway to come to this side of town. And I know for a fact that's a fair amount of traffic, but it's a public road, so we can't do too much about that except make them stop for the stop signs and not speed. All right, so I think that's our plan. Ponder how we want to
Right.
handle the whole neighborhood traffic management program in the future and do a traffic study in the fall, another one, and I will wait till I get the information from the county if they can locate it this long after it was done, and we will keep you informed. Anyone have anything else on that particular item on our agenda tonight?
Nope.
All right. Then going back to our agenda as originally scheduled, we have on July 21st at 7 PM here in Town Hall, we will have a public hearing on Resolution 1254-25, amending the 2025 fiscal year budget. Would that be you, Ms. Moody?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, it will be a public hearing. There will be some amendments to the amendment. I'm just gonna review a couple of those, this evening. A bit of good news, our police protection grant. We had not received the fourth quarter yet when we introduced this budget amendment, but based on previous years, I expected to be less than budget by about $30,000. We did get that fourth quarter. It actually was exactly the same as the previous quarters, which has not happened in quite a few years. But instead of a $30,000 under budget line item, it's only $9,900. So that is good news. On the expense side, a couple of significant changes. In town buildings, the electric for this building and Public Works and Planning, it's all in one line item. but we need to add about $11,000 to that budget. Fiscal year '25 was the first full fiscal year in the newly renovated Town Hall PD, and the budget was just too low. Under building maintenance, we need to add about $23,000. There were just some unexpected maintenance items that needed to be attended to. There'll be a few additional salary and benefit adjustments, but nothing significant from what was introduced. Again, a bit of good news. Our legal budget, we did get our final bill for the month of June, and the budget is going to be adjusted by about $6,000. We had a $6,000 savings in the budget. Under technology, you will see an amendment to add $22,000 to licenses, and again, in technology budget. Michael, Josh, and I spent a considerable amount of time, mainly Michael and Josh, reviewing this line item, and it was a combination of many vendor price increases since the budget was approved, but there was some necessary but unbudgeted services. So we've taken some measures to make sure that these kinds of issues don't occur in the future. But again, that's $22,000. Under the DPW streets, we need to add some additional funds there, about $13,000 to the already existing budget amendment for tree work by others. Because we had some monies to spend, Steve has said that there's additional tree work that needs to be done. So that was done towards the end of the fiscal year. Also, the guys in Public Works were in need of some new street and sidewalk tools of about $7,500. So again, because we had monies left at the end of the fiscal year, that's the time to make those purchases. Again, there may be a few here and there, but those are the more significant ones. It'll still be a balanced budget, so no worries there. I will not be there Monday night, but Pam, my deputy director, will be here to review the amendment with you. The public hearing will be, her presentation will be on the existing budget amendment. I will also have a list of the changes or the amendments, but when you all go to approve the amendment, you will also read the amendments to the amendment. All right, any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next is the cable franchise renewal agreement between the Town of Bel Air and Verizon. And is that Mike? All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know we talked about this in summary, but it has now come to fruition. Just a little bit of background. The town commissioners on October 6, 2008, entered into a cable franchise agreement with Verizon, and that became effective on October 27, 2008. It was for 15 years, and it expired in 2023. So it's been expired for quite a bit of time. You might wonder what's been going on. Well, the town and Verizon mutually agreed to extend those terms and has done so. And we've been slowly in talks over the last 2 years. We have now come to an agreement. So before you at the next town hall meeting will be a request to introduce an ordinance to approve a 5-year non-exclusive franchise for the operation of Verizon's cable communication systems within Town of Bel Air. And it is at the same 3% of annual gross revenue that was in the prior contract. Cable television is slowly going away. So in the end, the town did not have much leverage to request or require a longer term or a higher percentage, but those questions were asked. In the end, the best leverage we had was to request exactly what the Harford County cable franchise agreement received with Verizon. And Verizon was kind enough to amend their initial draft agreement with us to meet those county terms. So we are on par with Harford County when it comes to the terms of this agreement. And staff recommends that you receive this at the upcoming town hall meeting, and then we'll be at a public hearing that date, as well as another public hearing on the date of the vote in August, just for some additional due diligence due to the nature of it being a cable franchise agreement.
All right. Any questions for Mike about the Verizon contract?
And that 5 years starts on the date the ordinance is effective, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Not the 2023. Okay.
All right. So under unfinished business, we will then vote on the Resolution 125425, amending the 2025 fiscal year budget. And under new business, we will be accepting ordinance 843-26, the Verizon Cable Franchise Agreement Renewal. And now we are at new business, Resolution 1255-25, the 2024 Harford County Growth Report. Kevin, that's you?
Yes, Madam Chair. The county came out with their report last month. I've emailed that to you all. Homestead Wakefield is currently 117%, but that's using a capacity for a building that no longer exists. And if you'll notice in those numbers, it will say capacity 1,089, and then it'll say the enrolled amount is 1,072, and then it lists 117%. And then there's a footnote at the bottom that talks about, hey, they're using the old numbers. So it really means that for the next 3 years, Homestead Wakefield is within its capacity numbers. And so that'll be put before you to accept. One thing that's been kicked around over the years is whether or not you still want to accept this as a resolution every year or every 6 months, or just be, provided the information. I don't have a preference either way.
I have a preference for not voting on it as a resolution because it appears we're approving something that we have absolutely no input into or control over. It's just informational, and I think that's what Aberdeen and Havre de Grace do. Don't they just sort of
They file it.
file it? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's all they do. So
Yes.
So we've been
We
talking
can-
about this long enough. Let's put the paperwork
Let's
in.
get the
Let's
paperwork
get
in
this
and make
change
that
done.
change so we don't have to do this.
I
in 6
haven't done
months.
that because I just haven't gotten the instructions. If you're telling me to do that, I will put forward that change to the code.
If we do that, then we need another change to the code, because the planning commission is bound under the adequate public facilities section of the code to, when they're doing their analysis for school capacity, to utilize what current version of the growth report that you have accepted. If you don't accept it, then we got a problem. Now, that's fine. If you don't want to accept it, we can just revise that section to say the most recent version.
I would like to revise that section as well so that
Yep.
we are
Okay.
clear that we just get those numbers from somebody else and that's what we have to live with.
We're not anticipating anything that I'm aware of, but I don't want to open the door for an appeal.
Neither do I. All right, any further activity on the growth report? All right, Commissioner Liaison Reports.
I think everybody took July off.
Not quite. The tree committee's been really busy, and they have, I actually couldn't make the last meeting because I was out of town, but I did follow all the email traffic, and they have a list of potential tree planting projects in the town, which I will share with all of you. One of which is on the Bel Air Elementary School property. One is on Route 22, the north side between Leeway and South Shamrock. Some of it is something that's going to be done as part of the Harford Mall Residential Phase 1. Some other planting strips, that they're hoping to do, some of which they have to coordinate with another entity to do. And they also have a chart that they haven't finished quite yet, but the street tree selection options. So based on what your planting site size is, if it's 4 to 6 feet, or you've got 10 feet or more, they have a number of trees that they recommend, and they'll be finishing that up so everybody can have the benefit of it if they're trying to pick a tree that somebody with a great deal of knowledge about trees knows is an appropriate tree for that location. So I think that'll be great.
And anyone in the town can request a street tree in front of their house or townhouse, and town will
If
accommodate
they
them.
have a minimum of 4 feet.
Right.
That's the key. So much of our town, I know in front of my house, there used to be those Bradford pears, which broke off at the base. I see Steve Klein shaking his head no. Yeah, they were terrible trees. There was a windstorm and it broke off like a foot from the ground, the whole tree. And there are none there anymore, but it's too narrow of a strip. It's not 4 feet wide, so there you go.
Yeah.
So anybody that's got a 4 foot wide strip, call up, ask for a street tree. I would. Anybody else have any liaisons that have met this summer?
The planning commission met and approved in their that special session's coming up.
The regular session.
The regular session, where they approved the building on Bond Street for the nail salon and is it the Thai restaurant?
I think it's a Vietnamese restaurant.
Vietnamese restaurant? And the Vietnamese restaurant. So that will be going forward. They met all the requirements for that. And planning commission, I don't think there was anything too special about,
They did not ask us to remove any parking spaces, correct? Any
Correct.
metered
Any
parking spaces?
metered parking spaces, they're all,
no, we're just moving
Still
some,
there.
but not,
yeah.
you're right.
Very good.
So,
Okay.
but other than that, that was pretty much all that was
Right.
on that one.
Well, summer vacation's always good.
And then if I remember correctly, didn't the trampoline, they
Yes.
pulled their,
If anybody's counting on the trampoline park, they've decided not to
not to
proceed.
proceed, yeah.
Darn.
As I misappropriately said, the tramp park, no, the
Tramp.
trampoline park. I was just, trying for brevity, and I messed up last time, but.
All right. Well, I am glad that everyone is enjoying the summer vacation. And we now have the staffing update. Mike?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a little bit of feedback from the microphone there, sorry about that. We have one position open and currently accepting applications for a police officer as well. And that includes laterals from allied agencies who might be interested in making a career change to the Bel Air PD, as well as people who are aspiring to become police officers or both encouraged to apply. I will be posting a laborer job. Mr. Klein and the deputy director just informed me to get that up as soon as possible, so I'll try to have that up before the end of the week. And those are the two active positions that we're recruiting for on the town website. We do have some appointed officials on boards, committees, and commissions that a couple of vacancies we'll have to make a few decisions on, including the Board of Ethics, Board of Building Appeals, Board of Appeals, and even Tree Committee if you look into October. One thing I'd like to add is the town board, the Board of Commissioners, have appointed all the necessary election judges for the upcoming municipal election. The election judges met and they would like to add a couple poll workers, which we have done. They appointed 2 poll workers, and we still have 1 poll worker in the approved budget that is vacant. So the Board of Election Judges, through me, is requesting any assistance. So those of you who might be watching at home, or those of you who are here in this meeting, if you know of someone who is a town resident and is interested in helping the Board of Election Judges run the upcoming municipal election, there is an application on the website, or you can just call me, Michael Krantz, the town clerk, and ask to apply, and we'll go ahead and consider your application. So if anybody knows someone, we are interested.
What's the date of the election?
November 4th.
November 4th, okay.
Yes.
Just so everyone knows, you have to be available November 4th.
Yes, sir,
And is there
that would
some
be an
training?
important
Right.
date.
Is there some training that they have to be available for as
Yes,
well?
we definitely would have training with probably at the end of October, just prior to the election, so that way the training is fresh in everybody's mind for the
Okay.
day of.
And is that one day of training?
One day, just a couple hours with our partners, thanks to the Harford County Board of Elections to continue to help us with our municipal elections, yes.
And they are paid too, correct?
This is a paid position. Thank you for adding that.
That's
The poll
important.
workers and election judges do get paid for the day of the election, and they get paid for the training.
And don't we throw in lunch?
There's definitely food. I keep them well-fed, especially the day of the election. There'll be breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's a long day.
It's a
So
long,
the-
it's a
so
long day,
those-
but it's one day. We don't,
So
we
it's a
don't
long
have
day.
early
You'll
voting and.
be there from, polls open at 7 a.m. and they close at 8 p.m. And you're typically there an hour before and often an hour afterwards. So you definitely, we want to have enough people so the existing election judges and poll workers can take breaks throughout the day. The last election was pretty steady all day long, and we of the 5 stations that are manned, we really didn't have enough people to allow for breaks throughout the day, and we want this to ensure it goes just as smoothly as last time.
All right, and I know that Wayne Merkel's appointment is coming to an end in October. What we do have someone who's interested in, not filling his shoes certainly, but serving on the board. And Wayne has indicated that he is going to, this will be his last term after many, many terms. And we're still looking for Board of Ethics and Board of Appeals, and both of those positions require someone to be a resident of the town. So if anybody's out there listening and is interested in serving, we'd love to hear from you.
Right. On the Board of Appeals, we have 2 positions open. Mr. Garrity has acknowledged that he will return. He will like to be on the board again. You should have gotten his application, Mike, did you not?
I would have to check. I'm sorry, I don't.
If not, I'll forward,
Recall.
I
Yeah.
saw it. If not, I'll forward it to you.
Okay.
I thought you were CC'd on it.
And is Rob Preston not returning?
He has declined,
Okay.
yes. After many, many years of service to the town as a commissioner, as a mayor, as a planning commission, Board of Appeals, yeah.
Did we verify that Mr. Brian Greg Adolph, that he is interested in reappointment?
I think I did.
He-
I
so he-
verified with him when he was up earlier this year and he accepted the alternate position, he was okay with continuing with that. But I'll verify if you'd like. Did you say building appeals? Okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which appeals are you talking
Mi-
about? Yeah.
Mr. Klein indicated he'd not yet asked, so we'll,
Okay.
and then quickly fled the scene.
I noticed that. As soon as it came up, he left, so we'll ask him when he comes back. He can't escape us forever. All right. Anything more, Mike, about staffing? All right. I know we all got a freshly issued version of the calendar, which now includes September, so you know the fall is coming up.
Planning Commission will not be meeting in August.
All right, so I'm going to cross off the August the 7th Planning Commission meeting. And I did send everyone an email that the work session on August the 12th, I will not be attending. I will be out of town. So if everyone could just check their schedule for purposes of a quorum. And also, Steve, I hope you'll be here on
Right,
August the 12th.
I answered you, yeah. I'll be
Okay,
here
good.
for the 12th.
Hadn't seen that yet.
Yes, I intend on being here.
Great.
Madam Chair, we do have an additional ribbon cutting to add. Invitations are forthcoming, but there will be a ribbon cutting on August 22nd at 10 a.m. at Charm City Run for their grand reopening.
All right.
You should receive an invitation at the end of July.
Well, it's always good to get your requests in early on the busy summer calendar. Anything else on the calendar? Certainly, if anybody notices anything, let Mike or Ruth know, and they'll take care of it. So, under miscellaneous, 10A, we have already dispensed with. 10B, discuss Town Code, Chapter 450, Vehicles and Traffic, 450-33, riding bicycles and similar devices on the sidewalks or municipal structures, and 450-35, skateboards, inline skates, roller skates, and similar devices and related fines. So- Yes, sir.
So if I may, I can tee this up. I know that you asked us to be on the agenda. We, Chief Warren and I, have received a handful of complaints about more bicycle infractions than anything on Main Street, riding the sidewalks. I think the chief calls them the stunt cyclists that will ride down the middle of Main Street. But this has kind of evolved into a larger discussion, not only about bicycles, but skateboards and other such things, and how we want to approach them on Main Street. I know you and I discussed, the chief and I discussed signage with fines so the offenders would know what they could face if they were caught. But there's also an opinion that maybe we have too many signs or could have too many signs on Main Street and would lose its aesthetic appeal. So I just wanted to tee that up. That's why we put it on the agenda for tonight, to get everyone's understanding of what they would like us to do to try to mitigate this problem and move further on it.
Yeah, I bet that a lot of people don't know that you're not supposed to ride bicycles and other things on the sidewalks. I personally am not generally offended by like the 8-year-old on the sidewalk in my neighborhood with her dad walking along. You know, I just don't want to push those people into the street necessarily, but I certainly don't want to be walking down Main Street and have one of the stunt cyclists.
I think it was punk cyclist. I don't know, maybe, but.
Yes. Those people, they're a menace to the motoring and the pedestrian people. But I am sensitive to the signs being a visual clutter everywhere.
This already incurs a fine, yes?
So for the first offense, it's a $25 fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then for a second offense, let's see, 3 or more offenses after that is a $100 fine. And then we're supposed to be able to take the bike. I've run that by the state's attorney's office. I really don't think that that's something that we can be able to do. We can hold the juvenile there. And again, when I made my reference, these are the kids that are, you know, this isn't for the regular person that doesn't know that they're not supposed to be on the Main Street sidewalks. These are the kids that are doing the wheelies in the middle of the streets and, you know, very reckless.
And
when we
for
can
that
catch them.
reason, I don't think signs are going to do anything other than clutter Main Street. In my opinion,
Yeah.
I think these folks do what they're doing because they like the thrill of it. They know they're not supposed to, and so I'm of the opinion, dispense with the signs, just start the fines. You know, I mean,
We can surely
that's
do
my
that.
view.
But again, there's nothing there that, what if they don't know? What if these are the other people that the honest people that don't want to go on Main Street because it is very dangerous? They still shouldn't be there. They should be rerouting, going around in other locations, Hickory
Sure.
Avenue or elsewhere, because it's just, it's a disruption to pedestrian traffic up there and people on the sidewalk cafes and et cetera. So that's where the idea came from. You know, I think Havre de Grace has them. They have the signs up
Mhm.
there too. That's where the idea came from. So.
Once Havre de Grace's main thoroughfare is back open, I don't know if it's open again yet. I will have to certainly go down there and take a look at what they look like, just to get an idea of how cumbersome they are on the streetscape. But I'm of the view that for the folks that are really causing issues, you know, for most individuals, most pedestrians, I don't think signs are going to be much of a deterrent at all. I think to the degree that we can deter action, and I think in many instances we probably can't deter it entirely. We certainly can't deter it entirely. Actual, tangible action might be the only way to do it.
I definitely like fines rather than signs. And of course, you can use your discretion if it's
Right.
an 8-year-old that's not being obnoxious. You could just say you can't ride your bike
Certainly,
here.
I trust our officers to detect the nuisances,
Yes.
as it were.
And those who are truly mocking the law and popping wheelies where there's pedestrians, I'd fine them.
Yep. Oh, we do, and
I
we
know
will, yep.
it's tough. You have to be there. I know.
The one issue we have is, it's unfortunate, but these kids know that there's really very few little consequences now, and if they run from us, and there are severe consequences if we were to chase them and something happens to them. So they understand that, and they exploit it, and that's kind of what we're dealing with now with them. So we're trying to figure out a strategy to be able to hold them accountable and make them realize it's they're going to pay consequences when they do this stuff, when we catch them. And we do catch them sometimes. Yeah.
So, Madam Chair, if I could chime in here, because apart from Main Street and the stunt riders, I had one of our constituents, who walks a great deal, really talking about here on North Hickory Avenue, where people are riding bicycles on the sidewalks, and I live, right off of North Hickory. And when I, walk into my office or whatever, I've almost gotten hit by people who are commuting. They're clearly commuting to work or up to ShopRite to the grocery store. They have their grocery bags in their hands. They're coming back. They're on the sidewalk. They're coming around the curve right there where you're supposed to be able to safely walk across I push the button, wait to get across in the crosswalk, and boom, man, bicyclists. So when this one particular constituent who is a professional here in town and has an office and a resident on Broadway, talked to me about this specifically. He was pointing out North Hickory Avenue with normal people, commuting up and down Broadway, commuting up and down North Hickory, on their bicycles, on the sidewalks, quickly coming up behind people who are walking, and some have, their earphones in when they're walking. They feel like they've got a right to walk on the sidewalk without having to look, in the rearview mirror all the time for a bicyclist just come up on them. So we've got those people, adults, somebody in my age range, Chief, I'd say 30 to 45, okay? Not kids, just people trying to find a quick, safe way to either get to work in the morning or when their work knocks off, or in the, going up the grocery store. And then the second group of people are the reasonable, law-abiding teenagers who appear to just be going to the library. And probably are riding that bicycle on the sidewalk right in front of Town Hall. And so, I don't know if they stop, after they pass my office, because my office, I've got the view of North Hickory from the second story out on that sidewalk, and I can be working on my computer and just watch it happen. So, so I was sympathetic to the conversation I had with one of our constituents, who's been a member of this commission, who's been so it's reliable sources.
Yeah. I think they're okay. I hate to say it, and I'm not in agreement with it.
Yeah.
But in that area, they're okay to ride on the sidewalks. It's just that it's supposed to be and it's our downtown district.
Well, there we go. That's why we're having this hearing,
And
because that is exactly the kind of change in the law that if one needed. And I said I talked to folks. I talked to Eddie about it, and so I was not aware that that's not the law, because that's a big question. So if we're only outlawing bicycles just on Main, I didn't know that. I thought they weren't allowed
Right.
The
on
codes-
Broadway or Hickory, so
Now, it used to
we
be in
share
the
the
state law.
sidewalk.
I'm quite certain it used to be in the state law that if the travel portion of the roadway is open, you should use that rather than the sidewalk. But you know how some of the state laws go, I think it disappeared, so.
Well, I don't even know whether we're allowed under state law to regulate bicyclists on the sidewalks.
It says,
And-
it's in there that you can, in the state.
I haven't looked at it a long time, but I thought it said that it wasn't allowed unless the local jurisdiction said it was allowed.
I'll have to check that.
I'll have
Maybe-
to, we'll
yeah,
have to check
look
because
at it.
I'm not sure.
Mhm.
it-
Yeah.
There's something in there that talks about bikes and sidewalks.
Mhm.
And certainly, I think adults on bikes should be in the roadway. I mean.
Right. I agree with you. They shouldn't, if the roadway's open, they should be using the roadway. Right. And I never, as far as Main Street, it's just, it's very, very precarious and hazardous for them to be driving bikes on Main Street. So I don't know what the answer to that is.
Well, I don't know, if it's great to be, on parts of Hickory
No.
Avenue either.
No, I agree.
You know,
Yeah.
Chuck, I'm not.
Yeah, I
and so-
agree with you.
There you go. See, there you go, just the two kids right there. Just saw it.
They had helmets on.
Did you
Yeah.
call him before the hand to
Yep,
say go ride that?
Yep.
They were wearing helmets.
It's yeah, I think so. So, I mean, that's a question that was raised, by a constituent who, has done a lot of service, in this town and has served on this commission. Wanted to see, what will the commission do about it? And so clearly, then it's not a question about what you'll do about it, Chuck, if it's not illegal. I wouldn't mind, Madam Chair, having our legal counsel look at it and let us know, is it legal, is it not legal, and what's the
That's a good
parameters
idea.
of passing those laws? All right,
I mean,
is that okay?
Sounds good to me, because I remember there's some state law sections about bicycles, and I thought they said it's not permitted unless the local jurisdiction has adopted a
It may,
statute that
it
allows
may.
it, but I'm not sure,
What was
because I haven't
disturbing to
looked at it
me,
for a
yes,
long
ma'am.
time.
It was disturbing to me to see that, and I know that I knew it pretty well, the transportation article, and I was quite sure that there was something in there that said, look, you should not be on the sidewalks unless, absolutely, and that's gone, so I can't find it anymore. So,
I mean, our code, I'm looking at it here, says in the business district of town or in or on any municipal structure for bikes.
Yep.
But this is we're B2 here.
We're in the
We're not-
business district here.
Even down to Hickory Avenue, I believe you're all the way down to Broadway.
Yeah, when I read that, I thought it
I'm
was
in
sort of
I'm
poorly
in an R
defined.
overlay on my
Are you?
building, yeah.
Okay.
So, but you get the one, I think Chris Van
Okay.
Roden's B, I'm not sure. But,
Had to take a look at
But I do think that's kind of like vague language, business district, what does that
right,
mean, you know?
it's clearly not limited to just Main Street,
Right,
because Bond's business
right,
district.
right.
I thought it would be B1, 2, and 3.
So a lot of times what we'll do with them, they don't have their helmets on, they don't have the other stuff, we can take it.
Yeah, and like, I'm not thrilled about the idea of putting, like these young people, on the street versus the sidewalk. Clearly, I think they're much safer on the sidewalk. So that's really a substantive discussion about weighing, the interests of the pedestrian versus the interests of the bicyclist. And, maybe it makes a difference if, we got adults, in my mind, I'm not as concerned about protecting the safety of the adults. Now I sound like I'm going to join the Kiwanis Club or something. Yeah, but it's.
They need 15 members, Jim.
Yeah.
But here's
That's
another
all I need
issue.
is one more thing.
These kids, they might be 50 pounds, their parents, they get them these bicycles, these battery-powered things, they're going 30 miles an hour. It's just, I don't understand that,
Well,
It's
I
very,
mean,
very dangerous.
Maybe technology has once again outrun the law. And now we've got, we've got artificially powered bicycles. I mean, is that what we meant by bicycles when the code was written? Probably not thinking about an electric bike, but yeah. I mean, so the categories, I think it'd be worth some
You're gonna look at-
examination of it.
The code probably doesn't contemplate bicycles whose speeds top out at breaking the speed limit of the road that they're on. I don't think that was ever considered as a possibility.
The
Certainly not
transportation
with human
article
legs.
does. The transportation article breaks it down. But again, the differences between some of these bikes are relatively minute, especially for somebody, an officer who's not, and, you know, we know officers, if it's not clear, if it's not black and white, a lot of times they're not gonna mess with it, just because it's hard to explain to a judge when you do take action, you know? So it's very difficult to differentiate between what is what. It's a very tricky question right now. It's a
I
complex
understand what you're
question.
saying, because
Yeah.
there are various kinds of e-bikes, like the lowest level won't
Mhm.
go real fast, and you
Yes, ma'am.
can't, it won't go unless you pedal it. And then there
Right.
are others that have a more powerful motor and have a
Mhm.
throttle and will go whether you're pedaling or not.
Yep.
So, yeah, some of them are approaching almost like a motorcycle type of a,
And they have a
Okay.
combustion engine, some of them do, rather than
Yes.
a battery-powered,
right.
electric engine, so.
But it's hard to tell to the untrained eye, which
Yeah.
mine is, what category you're looking at. Unless somebody's going and not pedaling, then I know it's
Right.
got a throttle.
Did Mr. Hopkins have anything else to add? I know that was one of his hot buttons, too.
No, I'm fine. Thank you, Chief.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate the
All right, so we'll see what the state code has to say and look at what our town code says and see if we want to make any changes. So we are now up to discuss short-term rentals and potential new legislation or town code amendments. This is yours as well.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Hopkins?
May I take this opportunity to excuse myself? I'm familiar with the next two topics.
Yes, you
as well.
may. I thought
No, I-
maybe you were going to excuse yourself after the traffic calming devices, but you
No,
hung in
I'm-
there for a while.
I want to be respectful of the commission and stay on for as long as I could, but I am familiar with the next two topics and I'm comfortable with the discussion. So if that's okay, I'd like to excuse myself.
You can always watch the recording if you're really, sorry that you missed the rest of the meeting, Eddie, but enjoy your vacation.
Well, thank you so much. Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Madam Chair, if I may.
Please do.
Okay, so this is a continuation of the ongoing discussion we've had back and forth on short-term rentals. So what I have just handed out is the draft ordinance that I wanted to point out to the commissioners a couple of the changes that were made after the consultations with the Planning Commission and the Economic and Community Development Commission, otherwise finally known as ECDC. So I have handed out, here's a little background. I've handed out, thanks to Director Small, a memorandum from the Bel Air Planning Commission. And on June 5, 2025, I appeared before them. I made a presentation on the legislation as drafted at that time, which was I was proposing a special exception for the short-term rentals in the R zones and a special development regulation approval process in the B zones and M1. And they, following that hearing, I was pleased to receive a unanimous support of those two proposals in all districts. And so this is their memorandum from the Planning Commission that I wanted to share with you for the record, and their rationale, which is consistent with the rationales that I've discussed with the commissioners before. And then in June, on June 12th, I appeared before the ECDC meeting and provided an overview and of the proposed legislation, and they also provided an overwhelming support for the suggestion of now making short-term rentals legal with some very significant restrictions under the, in both the Rs and the B zones, with the big distinction there on a couple of areas. So, you know, between them, mainly with regard to, you know, things like the requirement for the owner-occupied, owner on premises type of thing, you know, in the R zones, as well as some additional criteria that apply just to the R zones in the legislation, as we've discussed before, including the maximum 500 square feet in the R zone districts for the special exception. The language changes that came about from those consultations, and also from an email comment that we had received, came on this legislation. If you'll look at on the second page of the ordinance where it says short-term rental performance standards, I'm going to draw your attention to 1B, where, you know, we've, in our discussions, you know, changed that to the owner must be on site. We've talked about that before, and that the owner or caretaker must be located, the language now says the owner or caretaker must be located within Harford County for all other districts. So that was a change over saying within so many minutes of the short-term rental that was operating in the business districts. And so there was some question about what does that mean? How do you manage? How do you measure minutes? Is it going to be challenged in court? Is it too vague? So the solution that I support here is to state that that owner or caretaker must be within Harford County. So that dovetails perfectly with the jurisdiction of the Sheriff's Department, the District Court in Harford County, the Circuit Court in Harford County, subpoena power, summons power, all the above. So it's a well-known kind of parameter that's it very clearly is geographically defined, and since we are, you know, in pretty much center county here, I think it makes a lot of sense and solves that concern. And
as far as time is concerned, I'd say it's coterminous with roughly no more than 30 minutes. I'd say you can get from pretty much anywhere in Harford County to Bel Air in less than 30 minutes.
Right.
For the most part.
For the most part, depending upon the weather and the conditions. But yeah, I agree with that. And the bottom line is, if we had some, you know, major crisis, you know, and there was litigation or maybe criminal charges coming out of some, you know, nut house being run type of a thing, then through the prosecution process, the state's attorney's office and our town police know that, you know, all the law enforcement agencies within Harford County would be able to cooperate, you know, whatever the investigation was, et cetera. So, you know, as we know, people that commit crimes in Bel Air don't often stick around, right, Chief? they flee somewhere else, and so I think that makes a lot of sense, and I supported that change. And also on the definition of short-term rental, you know, instead of it being a unit available for rent on a temporary basis for 28 days, it says now 28 continuous days, and that was a really good suggestion at ECDC on that point. And so to add that language in there to make it clear that I'm not talking like 28 days in a year or 28 days in a quarter or 28 days, but so that we're talking about, you know, clearly that was the intent of the short-term rental definition. I think it clarified that. So what I wanted to do this evening is, you know, I know that there's differences of views or opinions, you know, here, you know, on the commission, and I've been through, you know, the process here and have gotten great feedback and support, you know, from Planning Commission and ECDC without any dissenting vote in either one of those commissions. And I thought that I'd like to really, I think, get down to the core question this evening, which is, where do people, where are the positions on, or where are people leaning on with regard to, you know, the zoning districts where it would be allowed? And I think the bright line here has been falling out between residential and the business districts, and I'm including M1 in the business district. And, you know, or whether there's any difference of opinions as to, you know, as to that. So I wanted to see, Chair Edding, if we could
Well,
get different
I'll
views.
go first.
Okay.
I'll go first. As I have consistently said, I am opposed to any short-term rentals in any of the residential districts, including the RO. I mean, for most of the residential districts, people have purchased their homes in a single-family neighborhood or, you know, a townhouse neighborhood, and it's a residential area. It's not meant to have a business, you know, which is what I look at this as. It's like a mini hotel. I know that a lot of people would like to have them here in town, but I've had people come from out of town from the South and from the Northeast, from Connecticut and other states for weddings and other family functions, and they unfortunately have to stay at a hotel somewhere else, but they come to town to, you know, we have dinner in town, we do other things in town. I understand it would be much better. I wish we had a little mini boutique hotel in town if we can't generate enough business to attract, you know, a Hilton-type property. But I think that most people view their homes as their homes and don't want to live in what is essentially now going to be a business area.
I fully support this. As you heard me speak the other day about the hundreds and hundreds of people who go to lacrosse and all those sporting events, all of those people are staying in hotels up and down Route 40, all the way into Baltimore City. They're not coming here to party. They're just coming for an event. When the event's over, they want to come get a shower, go out to dinner, go to bed, and get up the next morning and go back to the event again. It's not like, oh, a bunch of college students wanting to party in Bel Air. That's far from it. People want to come and be able to stay in Bel Air if their granddaughter's getting married. It's not like a college town where everybody wants to come and party. So I fully support this. I think you've done a great job working on it. And having those two entities support it as well says a lot. So kudos to you, Jim. You've done a great job on this.
I'm good with the B districts. I'm not in favor of the R districts, any of the R districts. And part of that reason is, you know, this gives people more reason to build ADUs. I'm not a fan of ADUs. You can build an ADU that's 500 square feet and turn it into, and just make your backyard into a permanent STR, VRBO type thing. I think you're going to get all kinds of people that come in. I think for weddings and all, when you have young people coming in for weddings that want to stay in town, you can get rowdy. This depends if you have the wedding party or if you have the family. You know, it's two different groups. There's all kinds of groups that come to weddings and things like that. And I don't think people should do that. And I'd rather, on something as big as this, I'd rather start small. You can't take it, once you give them the R district, you can't take it away. I'll go with the B district. Let's see how it happens, how it goes. And I also think if we proliferate with STRs in the R districts, and we get a lot of them, we're killing our chances to get a hotel. And I would like to see a hotel over any of this. And I think if we get a lot of STRs in here, short-term rental properties in, we're killing ourselves. We'll never get a hotel in here. So for those reasons, I'd like to see, I'd like to crawl before we walk and just do the B district. I'm good with that, and the M district, and leave out the Rs.
So I'm firmly in support of this in the commercial districts. I think that there is a clear need to increase places where folks can stay in the town of Bel Air. You know, truthfully, I'm not all that concerned with a proliferation of party pads. I don't think that that's been borne out in the county where they're allowed. And I didn't see it back when they weren't allowed in town, but they were sort of passively permitted in town. That being said, I do think that people have the right, they buy in reliance of living in a residential neighborhood. And Mayor, I do find your comments persuasive. I have heard personally from a great number of residents, particularly homeowners in our districts, who are concerned about the neighborhood in which they live remaining residential. And I do think that people have the right to essentially have a say over what goes on in their neighborhood. So for that reason, Commissioner Chismar, I think your approach is prudent. I definitely want to see how this goes in the B districts. I think that this could be a boon for the town in the B districts. I think it would be prudent to move on that at this time, but I'm not in favor of immediately jumping into the R zones with this piece of legislation. I think we have some progress that we can make. I think it's important to take a balanced approach because I'm sympathetic to the economic argument. I think that is a valid, viable argument. But I'm also sympathetic to the dozens and dozens of folks who reached out to me with their view about their neighborhoods and their homes. And as an elected official, I just can't ignore that. And so for that reason, I think the balanced approach here of moving forward in the B districts is going to be the best way to move forward.
Well, I think we have somewhat of a consensus on everybody is pretty much okay with the B districts. And anybody have any other comments or suggestions about this piece of legislation?
Well, I want to thank first, I want to thank all the staff help that I've received on this. I want to thank Director Small, excellent work that he's done on this. Very appreciative of that. I want to thank Angela. I want to thank you. The ECDC was very welcoming. You made that an easy process, and we have a lot of great people, on those commissions, and they gave us, very robust time, also, and I want to thank them. I want to thank the Planning Commission members and the members of ECDC because their time, they're volunteers, and they bring a breadth of skill sets, that are very valuable to the people here in town. I know all the commissioners, appreciate that as well. So I wanted to thank them, and I want to thank my commissioners here for giving me the time and the consideration and to deeply considering, the discussion and being willing to, get away from outlawing them everywhere. I'm certainly encouraged about the fact that there can be a start in the business districts, and I wanted to get that point of guidance tonight because I needed that to consider what kind of legislation to actually formally propose that could get received, let alone passed. So I want to I appreciate that and I understand, Commissioner Taylor, that you agree not in the RO either. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to be clear on that. So, well, thank you for your time on this evening.
You've certainly done all your homework on this one, so we appreciate your efforts as well. I just wish we had a little hotel somewhere. All right, next we have discussed the Town Code Chapter 165, Comprehensive Plan and Development Regulations, Part 2 Zoning, Article 10, Accessory and Temporary Uses regarding fences, sheds, and related permits.
So for my part, I'd like to thank both Eddie Hopkins and Kevin Small for working with me and a resident of town who the current shed provision in the code is just inadequate. Currently in town, it is exceedingly difficult if you own a corner lot to be able to build a shed that faces the right-of-way basically anywhere except the far back of your property. It's very difficult to construct that item. And so working with, thank you, Mr. Krantz, working with, I know, so suddenly I've got, like the voice of Thor. It's like, I know Mr. Krantz is on it. And so working with Director Small and Town Administrator Hopkins, we found a narrowly tailored solution, no pun intended, to be able to deliver for this constituent and for all those homeowners who have corner lots that are currently encumbered by the current code, to be able to construct a shed just as any homeowner would be able to for whatever purpose it is that they'd like to construct their shed. I think, what you're doing in your backyard with your shed is your business. And I think that this is, like I said, the least obtrusive way to go about doing that. And so the regulation is that it would be a minimum of 6 feet from the right-of-way, because again, we're talking about a corner lot where the backyard faces the road on one area. So that would have to be 6 feet from the right-of-way. And then the planning department, in the course of the approval of this shed, could require a survey to determine if the visibility at the intersection, which is the whole point for the prohibition in the first place, is impeded by the location of the shed. So we're not losing that guardrail. We're simply recognizing that in most instances, a total prohibition is probably a heavy-handed approach, one that we don't need to be so strict on. And for any further technical comments, I would defer to Director Small.
So currently, you can't put a shed on a corner lot, or is it just really when you scale off where you have to put it, there's not much left?
You can't put it in the front yard.
That would be good.
And when you're a corner lot, a house will face one side, but their kind of backyard and side yard is also a front yard, or is a front yard.
Got it.
This allows people to utilize more of that backyard.
So provided that it's, and I should have mentioned that too, that was a good question, Mayor, provided that it's behind the facade of the house is really what we're talking about, so that even though that is a front yard, it is really this person's backyard that we're talking about.
Got it. Yeah, we don't want sheds in front yards. I knew that was prohibited, but I was just wondering if we still permitted them someplace, but I figured there was just not a lot left once you scaled off where it can't be.
And this is, this doesn't pertain to ADUs or anything. It can't be construed that an ADU can be a shed or have the setbacks of this.
An ADU would occupy the same type of structure as a shed. So if you have a detached garage, you can convert it to an ADU, and that detached garage could be located within 6 feet of the right-of-way.
So this would apply to a detached garage, a person's normal, like a
Any
shed?
Any accessory structure.
Any accessory structure.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we're talking about sheds, because most of the detached garages were built.
But the language
30
of
or
the
40 years
legislation
ago.
uses, it doesn't use the word
shed.
accessory structure, it uses the word shed.
Right, and that's because shed has a particular definition associated with it. We can examine whether or not it's limited to sheds and sheds only. That would be anything under 200 square feet.
Right, and the reason I say that is because through this section of the code, the phrase accessory buildings is used, and and at one point it says except stables, which I think is great. That stables are referenced in the code. Milch cows, am I right? But I think the point is that we're using the word shed to refer to specifically sheds.
It is shed, so it would be anything under 200 square feet. That's
Right,
the way
okay.
we would interpret it.
That's what I just wanted to make sure that it was just.
We
the
can do it
shed
that
and
way.
not
If
any
it's
other-
your intent to only allow sheds.
Right, well, that is
Then that's-
certainly
that
what the
was-
legislation says,
Right,
yeah.
and that was your intent.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right, and not
I
changing
have
any of the other
no intention to
accessory
change
unit
anything else,
setbacks
yeah.
and anything like that.
Right.
Just for plain sheds.
Just so that a homeowner who currently can is able to store their tools somewhere that's not like in their mudroom or something like that. Yep, that is the very simple intention of this legislation.
So my question is, then, Director Small or Jake, a rear facade, so we're talking another language for me here. The rear facade, what's a rear facade?
You can generally look at the back of your, back facade of your house, and anything along that back facade would be the rear facade. So anything,
Okay.
when your house is facing the backyard, that portion, that's the rear facade.
So it's got to be behind the back of the house. When you're looking at the house, it's got to be behind the back.
Right.
Okay. Got it. So that way it can be in your second front yard behind the back of the house.
Correct.
Okay. That's clear as mud. I got, that's why you do your job. God bless you all.
All right, are we good on sheds? In that case, we're on to staff comments. No comments from the staff?
Oh, Steve.
Mr. Klein, was that a no on having reached out to Mr. Adolph?
Yes, I have not had the ability. I've spoken to him on several occasions on one issue, but I keep on forgetting to ask him.
Okay.
So I will do so the next time I see him.
As long as it's
hopefully.
in before August, we're
Yes.
all good.
Yes, and I did want to add one thing to something Lisa was saying earlier with regard to the ability of the Public Works to go out and purchase some additional equipment at the year's end as a result of some extra funding left. We've put all the old equipment, which was old and used and worn, on Gov Deals, and just a couple real quick things. We sold 2 old chainsaws and made $549 on them. We sold 2 concrete saws that were in pretty horrible condition, been used quite often, and we made $572 off of those. So we are putting those on Gov Deals and getting as much money as we can for the old stuff.
I'm amazed.
But I really appreciate the fact that we were able to replenish and have new equipment for the guys to use, because I think it's really important that they have good operating equipment when they go out for these emergencies. Thank you.
I agree, you gotta have some good chainsaws when the trees are falling down at the rate they've been going down.
Thank you.
No other staff comments? All right, commissioners' comments.
Well, I'm sure that we all have front of mind the 4th of July, even though it is now, 11 days ago, it's fading. Can't believe it, it's fading into the rearview mirror, and I'm hearing exasperated gasps from the 2 gentlemen that I'd like to thank, Director Klein and Chief Moore, and of course, everyone who works under you and with you. Another flawlessly executed 4th of July. This is something that Bel Air, I would argue that 4th of July is, we often talk about the town of Bel Air being this microcosm of fewer than 11,000 people, but it's really the ceremonial figurehead of 150,000 people who identify with Greater Bel Air. And no day is that more true than the 4th of July. Boy, we must have all 150,000 people that come into town.
Seems like it, yes, sir.
It seems like it. And every year, our staff, the hardworking men and women in DPW and the BAPD, pull it off. And the folks who are in the control room doing all of the organization, they pull it off. And every year, the town of Bel Air, again, no pun intended, just passes with flying colors, that test. And that's to say nothing of the incredible work that the 4th of July Committee does, which is an entirely different beast, and they deserve their entire due. I mean, all of the wonderful patriotic and family events just going. I never have I been more excited to be outside at 6:45 than for the flag raising in front of a town hall with the beautifully sung national anthem. It's just a wonderful day. And so we're just incredibly grateful for everyone who either works for the town and makes that possible or puts in countless volunteer man-hours to make that possible. I also wanted to, even though it was a Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting, recognize that Town of Bel Air Economic Development was well represented as we re-welcome the grand reopening of Z-Vault under new management. We're incredibly excited to have them back on Main Street. That's an anchor property in town. That intersection is very important. It's a big building. It's very important to have that filled, looking nice, looking good. Z-Vault is doing that very well. They have some delicious gelato I highly recommend. Much better than those guys who are just out of town in Forest Hill, and I can say that because they're not a town business. Come on down to Main Street for some good classic gelato. You won't be disappointed. And I'm also very much looking forward to, and we'll talk about this, I guess, more at the next town meeting because it will have happened by then, Old Line Mercantile. Their ribbon cutting on the 18th, which is, in fact, a Town of Bel Air Economic Development Department ribbon cutting, correct? Yes, okay. Which I always think ours are better anyway. Angela does a great job with that, and so I'm incredibly looking forward to celebrating with that graduate of our Armory Marketplace, which continues to be really a feather in the cap of both your department, Angela, and the town as a whole. And I look forward to celebrating with them as they graduate to full-scale brick and mortar, and I look forward as we begin the hunt to our next tenant, who will be the latest and greatest. So very well done. The first half of July has gone off well for the town of Bel Air.
And that selection process is well underway.
Yes.
That has been going on for several months of interviews and applications and follow-up, so we'll get there soon.
Well, I'll go next. The 4th of July was really just terrific, and this year I had 4 of the 6 grandchildren were here to enjoy all the festivities. They did the watermelon eating, the Uncle Sam Says, the balloon toss, just all of it. It was a great day, it really was. It starts off with the 6:45, was it? Flag raising. I'm always on the edge of my seat when somebody sings the national anthem, but she nailed it. It was really great. The parade was wonderful. Thank you to Mike Blum if he's out there watching, our parade marshal who manages to get us all organized and headed down the road on time. So it was really terrific. And thank you for the support that the police department and Public Works always give. It was a terrific event. And thank you again for all the support on the storms that we've had lately. You guys have been tremendously busy, and I cannot believe how much rain has fallen in the last, couple of weeks. But I know I have seen some really impressive footage on social media from Ellicott City and Woodlawn, 695 and Woodlawn. It was terrible. So we have been very lucky, and I will survey the couple of properties that I like to look at after a storm to see if they're still there. I think they're doing it really. What I'm going to say to those couple of folks is, if you didn't get water inside your house in these couple of storms, I think you're good, because that is more water than I have ever seen, and I've lived in town for like 30 years, so it's amazing. And I know everybody's been working very hard with all of the road construction, which I think is largely done. I drove down Atwood today, and it looked good, and Gordon looked like it was maybe finished.
Gordon is completed. George Street is, I'd say approximately 45 to 50% complete.
Mm-hmm.
Down the street, we had an issue with some, a water main break.
Of the water main.
Having a hard time because it undermined the base layer a little bit. With all this rain we're having, it's kind of pushing it back. So we're hoping
Right.
to get another layer of base and then the final paving section where the water main converted.
That's good. And I know I've seen on social media a number of comments about US Route 1 and Raising Cane's, which is not our project. That is the state of Maryland's project. And did they run into a water break, or was it?
That was Raising Cane's water service being put
Okay.
in
Okay.
a little late.
Yes.
Because it should have been put in the week before.
Before the paving was done,
Yes.
yes, that's the comment that I've seen. And then Bond Street is also not our project. And was that dug up for something as well, or is?
Currently, it's Pennsylvania Avenue is dug up from basically in front of the library all the way to Bond Street. Actually, all the way to Archer Street, Hayes Street. And that is a BG&E project, a gas line installation. Once they are complete, they will resurface that entire section of roadway. The only roadway they will not be required to resurface is Main Street intersection at Pennsylvania, because it's a state highway, and state highway's not requiring that they resurface that intersection. But the town is requiring that they resurface our section of Pennsylvania Avenue,
Glad to hear it.
including the the sidewalk emblem for the library, as
right.
well as install the walkway across Pennsylvania Avenue at the Pennsylvania Avenue parking lot. They will be redoing that as well.
You know, I would say somebody should call the Secretary of Transportation about that, but I guess you can't do that anymore, so we'll just have to live with it.
Not at the moment.
No. It'll just keep ringing.
So, so that they're not going to resurface Main Street at that intersection.
At the intersection where Pennsylvania crosses
Right.
Main Street, yes, sir. That's
So-
what I've been told.
So they're just going to leave it
They're just
patched.
gonna patch it.
Go talk to Tony. Tony, well, we'll talk to our councilman.
We can't
He
call
raised some
the.
cane for some.
We can't call the transportation secretary, but there are other people to call. Maybe
Right.
we'll see who we can think of.
Okay, see what we can think of, all right. And, yeah, again, just echoing kudos about what you guys did for the 4th of July. And the other thing is all the volunteers that, there's the Independence Day Committee, and they get hordes of volunteers to be able to run the parade and all the other activities. You got the fire departments and emergency services that are lining the streets to take care of any emergencies that go up. So it was a well-run and effort on all parties. And also, you got to give kudos out to all the sponsors. The businesses that sponsored all the things. I mean, Jones with our cars and the fireworks, Jones Junction, and I shouldn't name one because I don't know all of the ones, but there are quite a few businesses that really support this effort. So kudos to them.
Just one more, did I mention it was Bond Street as well, Main and Bond Street, because they're both state highways?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I was clear on that.
I did want to just, well, certainly, 4th of July was knocked down, great, fantastic, and what a tribute to the town, the community, the vibrancy of the whole area. I did want to try to just communicate to the public a little bit about putting things in perspective with regard to, all the improvements and the road work and everything across town. And we here in Bel Air, in Harford County, we stand in stark contrast to so many other communities across America. I was up in Michigan at a family wedding and was watching some of the local news out around the Detroit area, and some of these small towns were having to pass, emergency one-time surcharges of tens of thousands of dollars on their residents just to keep the sewer system from contaminating the water source. And they had the videos of these towns and communities, just nothing going on. I mean, nothing. And there are many communities across America, if you get out and drive around and go to and visit people, where they are, an economic blight. And we here in Bel Air find ourselves in the enviable position, I would state, of being able to complain about massive public improvements going on at a breakneck speed. It's, back during the recession, depression, 2008, 2009 era in this country, where you couldn't even get one person to show up at a public auction of a nice townhome and an estate auction in Joppatown, where you couldn't even get anybody even bid on a beautiful home with no limit or no minimum bid public auction showing up in this county, to where we are today with these fantastic projects going forward. And yes, sometimes it's a perfect storm of construction. Sometimes everything is breaking loose at once, but it's all breaking loose for the good. This is like, a birthing pain, and it's going to be a wonderful celebration of that new life. And, I read the criticisms, and And thank you, Mayor, for sharing some of the screenshots with me, because I try to, for my own mental health, stay away from a lot of that. But I just implore the folks of Bel Air to have some patience, to take a step back and realize that these growing pains, these improvements, all this, we are very, very fortunate to be able to even be living in a town where that's happening. Improvements and jobs and work and good environmental protections and a solid budget, a solid financial position. We have a lot to be grateful for and to be thankful for. And so I would like people just to take a step back and say, you know, well, in retrospect, that was an inconvenient day. An inconvenient day of having to, you know, haul some groceries through some, you know, a puddle, you know, having to, you know, drag the kids or an elderly parent, you know, through a tough situation getting in and out of your house because of the road and the parking situation wasn't all happening. I mean, there really was a perfect storm of events with regard to construction on the state highway and things going on those state highways we can't control. To paraphrase Steve Klein, you know, so it put a lot of traffic back on these alternative routes. And then you have water main breaks. Who can predict or solve that? You have many, many different things and many different projects going on. But I took a drive also yesterday afternoon, knocked off work around 5:30 and said, hey, this would be a good time just to take a drive over into the area of town where there was a lot of construction, a lot of complaints. And I was able to get around. Just fine. I could really see, you know, that the bulk of the pain we're well past it. We're well past those moments of crisis. And sometimes it happens, you know. It's for the best, though. It's absolutely for the best of this town and this community, these projects that have moved forward. So that's what I wanted to use my comment time for.
Any other comments from anyone?
Ditto, Jim. Ditto.
All right, we've reached the point where we are going to go into closed session. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that this meeting will be closed under the provisions of the Maryland Open Meetings Act, General Provisions, Article 3, Section 305B2, 7, and 8. The topics of discussion will be to discuss the Town of Bel Air annual award selection, to obtain legal advice and discuss potential litigation regarding Town Code, Chapter 50, Finance and Taxation, Section 50, subsection 3, assessments for services and improvements and abatement of nuisances, and to obtain legal advice regarding the Purdue Pharma Sackler bankruptcy plan and opioid litigation settlements. The reasons for closed session discussion of the above topics will be because public discussion of nominees would compromise the confidentiality of the selection process, and because public discussion of confidential information and legal strategies can compromise the attorney-client privilege and inhibit the ability of the public body to receive candid and uninhibited legal guidance.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, Mr. Krantz, we're ready?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To go into closed session, Commissioner Rutledge.
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Chance.
Aye.
And Chair Edding.
Aye.
Okay, we'll
And
be
just
going
for
into closed
clarity,
session.
and for the members of the public who might be watching at home, we will not be conducting any further business in public. We will be adjourning after our closed session.